Hey, it's Pierre Miller from Desiderata Pen Company with a very quick, I guess somewhat esoteric note about benderization. So when you buy a pen from my website, you have the option to benderize it, which is a term that I took from my nib grinding mentor, Richard Bender. And basically, I'll make sure that the nib doesn't catch paper, that it doesn't catch paper, writes immediately when you fill up and use it, and it doesn't feel stupid. Those are my metrics. Now, those might be pretty low metrics, but you might be surprised how many pens can't really do that. Nonetheless, the note about benderization I want to mention is about the particularly tricky one of the double broad. Yovo, nib manufacturer that I like to use, they offer a broad nib and a double broad nib. And I'm a little bit in kind of a ontological quandary when it comes to benderizing double broad nibs, because double broad nibs tend to be a little wide. And so on double broad nib, when given the treatment that I just described, wherein it's smooth and it works and all of that, it's a bit stubbish. Whereas a broad nib is not broad. Well, broadly speaking, broad nibs are not really stubbish. They're just kind of fat and round. Oh, that's a heater. Anyway, they're kind of, fat and round. Problem is that to take a double broad nib and round it down to the point where it works and isn't stubbish, where it just kind of writes with a uniform line width in every direction. By the time that you've done that, its line width is maybe a bit wider than a broad, but it's not really twice as broad. And I'm kind of without knowing what the person wants out of this double broad nib, I hope you can see that it can be a little bit confusing as to what to do. I'm not a fan of stubbish nibs myself. I think a double broad nib should just be huge, but the way that they do the nibs, the way they do the little tipping, it's not really. So, Ian, if you're making double broad nibs, make them legitimately round, and I'm sure you can. But for everybody else who's making double broad nibs, please make the tipping round. But for everyone else in the meantime, if I tune your double broad nib, unless you say so, I'm going to have to just give it the usual treatment, treat it well, and it's going to be a tad stubbish, which, you might like, but if you don't like it, you've been warned. Thank you very much. Have a good day.